I think the upside case for ETH is actually higher than, let's say, Bitcoin did 100x. Could Ethereum do 100x? I think that could happen because there is probably a significant probability that Ethereum could flip Bitcoin as well in terms of network value. And then if someone thinks Bitcoin's at $1 million, then imagine what it means for Ethereum, because it is not just Wall Street financializing onto blockchain, but it's AI, but it's also part of the US focus on AI dominance, right? Ethereum plays a strategic role there. Now, if MicroStrategy had tripled the upside of Bitcoin, then that means, in theory, the Ethereum treasuries could triple whatever Ethereum could do.
Ethereum is ready to rip through 5 figures, kicking off a climb that could make it the top crypto in the world. That's the latest message from Tom Lee, Fundstrat Capital co-founder and CIO. Ethereum's potential is massive, and Tom Lee sees a real chance it could overtake Bitcoin in network value. Growth is being driven by its role in on-chain finance, its integration with AI, and its place in the US race for technological dominance. If Bitcoin were to reach $1 million, Ethereum could climb far higher, with corporate ETH treasuries potentially tripling those gains. Lee views ETH as a strategic position in the future of finance and technology, with room for exponential expansion. Make sure to stick around until the end of the video, as Tom Lee reveals how Ethereum will dominate the crypto world.
MicroStrategy is 3.2% of the network circulating supply right now. And, but MicroStrategy wants to get to at least 1 million Bitcoin, which is about 5%. And keep in mind that once MicroStrategy has 1 million Bitcoin, they have a sovereign put. They are strategically important to the Bitcoin ecosystem. I mean, if the US wants to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve, it's probably difficult for the US to buy 1 million Bitcoin in the open market, because as soon as they announce it, sellers are going to shrink and, Bitcoin could go to $1 million right away. So MicroStrategy might be an easier way for someone to get to 1 million Bitcoin. So I call that a sovereign put. MicroStrategy's achieved the 3% in 5 years. So they were buying basically 16 cents worth of Bitcoin a day, every day for the last 5 years. Bitmine if you look at it from inception to now, has added about 80 cents to $1 per day in Ethereum. So it's about 12 times faster than MicroStrategy. So we would be on a path to get to 5%, presumably like at 12 times the speed of MicroStrategy. But it makes sense because, we would be a benevolent entity in the sense that we are doing everything 100% compliant with what is the idea of a legally compliant. Ethereum is a legally compliant blockchain, and everything that Bitmine is doing is keeping every single piece of the operations in the United States. So it is very compliant to what Wall Street and the US government would want to see in someone who's staking a lot of ETH. And equally important, ETH itself is going to be really where so much of Wall Street financializes on the blockchain. So eventually, I think someone on Twitter made the point that staking ETH for Wall Street is like gamers buying NVIDIA, that you would have done better to buy NVIDIA as well as be a gamer or be a gaming company. But because of, really how blockchains work, it is actually that exact idea that Wall Street is, if they're going to be tokenizing real world assets from money markets to dollars to stocks, that they're going to want to own ETH itself, but then they want whoever's staking it to actually be an entity that is really trying to further the goals of Ethereum. So I think we really serve an important purpose by staking ETH, If you just fast forward and Wall Street, right, so Genius Act, SEC wants to move the financial system onto the blockchain. And Ethereum is the largest blockchain, but it's also compliant with US laws. It's a legally recognized blockchain. But this blockchain, of course, can be used by other countries and other, nations. The US obviously wants to strengthen the US position and dominance on this blockchain. And of course, keep in mind that there's not just one storyline here coming onto Ethereum. It's also AI, right? If you're going to tokenize, whether it's robots or other things, you want a blockchain that also, again, can be secured. So tech and Wall Street are converging onto Ethereum. Does Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan want Ethereum to be held in like millions of different wallets? Not that they're trying to centralize it, but they want to make sure that the staking is done in a compliant way. And not everybody is going to choose to do that. But that's what we said from the beginning, that the idea is that BitMine has a pristine balance sheet, super clean, no exotic capital structure, and everything that is being done. And we haven't announced our staking solution, but we're taking our time because, first of all, $3 billion of ETH, it's a big decision, but it's also going to be completely compliant with GAAP and actually how the US would want that to be staked. So I think it's a very thoughtful approach we're taking. But yes, everything you just said, like, let's say, because I don't disagree, and it just shows you Ethereum treasury companies are critical infrastructure. It's not just a treasury play. And in exchange for that, you're earning a staking yield at a minimum, but they could be earning other ways of generating income. So I think you're highlighting that these Ethereum treasuries aren't just like an alternative to an ETH ETF. They are playing a really important role in the ecosystem.
MicroStrategy already controls 3.2% of Bitcoin circulating supply and aims for 5%, a position so large it effectively becomes a sovereign put on the asset. At that level, they'd be strategically essential to the Bitcoin ecosystem. BitMine's accumulation rate in Ethereum is moving 12 times faster than MicroStrategy's pace in Bitcoin. Lee believes that with full US compliance and a central role in staking, BitMine is aligning perfectly with Wall Street's push to tokenize real-world assets on Ethereum. If institutions want to own the rails of global finance, they'll need ETH, and they'll need it before the price runs away forever.
I actually think that there's a bigger upside story to Ethereum, because there's more skepticism to start with. Bitcoin wasn't necessarily something people shorted, they just didn't believe it. And so the upside case, like when we wrote about 100,000 in 2017, it seemed insane, but it didn't take that long from 2017 to now to get there. It was within our lifetimes that it was 100x. And Ethereum, I think you're hitting it spot on, is just like Bitcoin in 2017. Wall Street is not professionally convinced Ethereum is even a surviving chain, because there was some fair criticisms, and it did move to proof of stake, and there might have been too much ETH out there for a bit of time, but it's being fixed. And there's still skepticism that Wall Street going onto ETH, they're even going to stake ETH or even use ETH. Everyone's kind of there are probably more people who think that it's a layer 2 story and nothing benefits the layer 1. And I think that that's what's going to be shattered. And when it does, it'll be a step function. So I think the upside case for ETH is actually higher than, let's say, Bitcoin did 100x. Could Ethereum do 100x? Joe Lubin sort of has that kind of upside in his mind. Because Joe and I are in dialogue. We are really partners in trying to push ETH as a treasury, as a digital infrastructure. And I think that could happen because there is probably a significant probability that Ethereum could flip Bitcoin as well in terms of network value. And then if you're, if someone thinks Bitcoin's at $1 million, then imagine what it means for Ethereum, because it is not just Wall Street financializing onto blockchain, but it's AI, but it's also part of the US focus on AI dominance, right? Ethereum plays a strategic role there. Now, if MicroStrategy had tripled the upside of Bitcoin, then that means, in theory, the Ethereum treasuries could triple whatever Ethereum could do. So, I don't think you're going to go wrong saying that the Ethereum treasuries are a good investment class. But if you're looking at what BitMine's doing, it's those other things I was saying distinguish it. And that's why, maybe we will be at the front end of that. But they should all do well because Ethereum itself is undervalued. I think the near-term price people should think about is Ethereum getting to 4,000. Because Ethereum is a better story than it was in December, and it was 4,000 in December. So to me, we should at least recover to that level. And then Ethereum is a better story today than it was a year ago. And a year ago, Ethereum was at 0.05 ratio to Bitcoin. Right. To me, it's a stronger story, and there's reasons people are using Ethereum. So it's like a narrative. Well, at 0.05 Bitcoin, it's like almost 6,000. So just like saying, give it credit for where it is a year ago versus a year ago, it should be 6,000. But of course, there is going to be a lot happening between now and year end, including, other Ethereum treasuries starting to buy Ethereum plus Bitcoin goes up. So I think by the year end, it's not unreasonable to think 7,000, even 12 or 15,000 could happen. And of course, from there, then in 2026, the Fed starts to follow through on what it should be a dovish pivot. So central bank liquidity is rising. And so Ethereum should build upon those price levels. I don't know if there's a crypto cycle. There should be. It would play in our favor because, again, we'd rather Ethereum. I'd personally think that a Ethereum treasury company wants Ethereum to be flat for the next 5 years and then go up a lot. But it's probably not. It's probably just going to have a step function. But again, just to give you an idea, when I first wrote about the S&P in 2009, S&P earnings were $65 in 2007. And I built a model at JP Morgan that says we would get to $60 by 2010. Okay, so remember the stock market fell almost 80%? I don't remember. We had a huge decline. And every strategist didn't have a recovery to all-time high in earnings for 5 years. And so the buy side was very skeptical of the idea of $60 by 2010, but that would imply the S&P was at 10 times earnings at the bottom in 2009. And lo and behold, S&P earnings was over 60 by 2010, okay? And today S&P earnings are 300. So S&P earnings have grown exponentially. That's just the traditional corporate world. So the idea that crypto's network value could be 20 trillion for Bitcoin, we witnessed it in our lifetimes with equities. So, and also crypto treasuries are asset-based, valued on their balance sheet. MicroStrategy is valued really on its balance sheet, not on its earnings power. Keep in mind from 1990 to 2018, okay, so one full generation of someone's career, ExxonMobil was the top 5 largest company in the S&P 500 for that entire period, 1990 to 2018. There was internet and all that, but Exxon was top 5. It was never valued on earnings. It was always priced to proven reserves. So crypto treasuries are just the new Exxon.
Ethereum is ready for a breakout that could rival Bitcoin's most explosive gains. Tom Lee sees a clear path to ETH, matching or even surpassing Bitcoin in network value. With AI integration, Wall Street tokenization, and treasury accumulation fueling demand. A 100x move is on the table, putting Ethereum's potential market value in the tens of trillions. Lee projects $7,000 to $15,000 by year-end as adoption accelerates and liquidity floods in. When momentum hits, Ethereum's reprice could be fast, aggressive, and impossible to stop. If you want to stay most up-to-date on the crypto and Bitcoin world, subscribe to my daily 5-minute crypto newsletter. It's a concise resource for the latest expert predictions, breaking news, and top on-chain analysis, trusted by over 90,000 subscribers for insightful crypto investment information. Don't miss out on the opportunity to stay informed in the crypto market. The link is in the description below. I hope you all enjoyed today's video and that it gave you some value. I'll see you all at the next one, and as always, all the best.